Welcome back to DS Trucks. In today's video, we are going to be doing a MPG test with our 2020 F450, but this is going to be a little bit different because conditions are not ideal. It is like 28 degrees outside, which makes it difficult to return good fuel economy numbers. On top of that, we've got a snow plow on the truck, which is just a giant wind sail. It's just the definition of not being aerodynamic. This thing is just a big scoop in front, and it's got an extra freaking poly wing on it to really make it less aerodynamic. And with that, we also have a 2-yard salt spreader. It's not full, but it's got about 1,000 pounds of salt in there. Let's take a quick look in there and see what we got. So climbing up on here, we've got about 1,000 pounds or so of salt, maybe more. This is supposed to be a half a ton, but you never really know. But yeah, guys, it's in there, guys. It's in there. So we're gonna be doing an MPG test. This is gonna be interesting. This is a 6.7 power stroke. It's an F450. It's got a 430 gear. So it's about as good as you can get for doing this kind of work. So let's go ahead and jump in the truck and get going, get started. So one thing that is already kind of squared away is our engine temperature. We are at 189 degrees Fahrenheit, and I don't know what that is Celsius, but people who use Celsius usually can figure it out. So being that we're at operating temperature means we can return some pretty decent numbers. We are going to use our trip computer. So looking at our trip computer here, we're getting 9.5 average right now over the last 17.3 miles. And I did reset this in the morning. And this is why I'm kind of doing this test, because I was actually impressed with what the truck was getting. So 9.5, and that's with a lot of idling and stuff. But for the last 5,000 miles, we've been getting 9.9 to the gallon. And basically, this is a work truck, but it's also kind of like my mobile office. As you can see, I've got like a coffee cup and stuff in here. I do a lot of, let's be honest, I listen to a lot of podcasts in here. I go for a morning drive. I check my commercial accounts in this truck, and that's why I've got salt on here. So if something needs a little salt, I can hit it. It's not something that's really getting the most efficient usage. You know, it really just kind of, it's not driven for efficiency, period. So we're going to go ahead and drive the truck for maybe 10 miles or so. It's going to pretty much be city driving. I can do a highway version of this if guys would like to see that. Right now, the freeways are so bad that there's like a pile up. Like I said, it's cold. It's 19 degrees. This isn't ideal. These aren't ideal conditions to try to get a good MPG, but nonetheless, we're going to try. So we're just getting started here, and I'm going to reset trip computer number 1. It's now at 0. Let's see what this truck can get. So 2-wheel drive, driving normally, but yeah, it's no plow in the truck, guys. So that's one of the things about this truck is it was very controversial. Like, me getting this truck was kind of like, a lot of people were saying, why are you getting such a big truck? I was nervous too as well, picking up such a large truck, such an expensive truck. But it was just the truck that it could do everything I wanted to do. It can be a daily. It can haul stuff. It can haul a ton of salt, 2 tons of salt, 1,000 to 1,100 pound plow off the front, and I can just work. You know, whether I'm picking up the kids from school or if I'm just doing whatever I'm doing, it's ready to go. Now, I could get a cabin chassis version of this truck. It would be a lot more capable than this truck as far as payload and all that stuff is concerned. Wouldn't have more towing, I don't think, but it would definitely have more payload. But that vehicle would not be a daily vehicle. That suspension on a 450 cabin chassis is totally different. It is a very stiff suspension. Now with the F450 pickup truck version, they run the same springs as a 350 dually, and it has less payload. It has a little bit less payload on paper than the 350 dually, but that's because the tires weigh more, the axles weigh more, the wide track front axle up front is a stronger front axle, and it weighs more. The rear axle weighs more, but all of the components that actually add weight to the vehicle, most of those components, if not all of them, are unsprung. And everything from the springs up is the same as a 350, with the exception of the fender flares up front. That's insignificant, but everything else is 350. So really, I know it says F450 on it, but it's kind of an illusion in a way, kind of halfway. It's like halfway between a 350 and a true 450. It's got the commercial tires, it's got heavy duty axles, but from the springs up, you are a 350. You are an F350 technically. And furthermore from that, the actual gross vehicle weight rating of the truck is more, it's the same as an F350. It's a 14,000 pound max truck, and that's why it has a weaker payload than the 350, because for licensing reasons or whatever the reason, it's derated down to 14,000 pounds, and it carries the springs of a 350. So it's not a true, it's not like the cabin chassis. You could almost say it's not a true 450. It technically still is, because it does have the 450 badge and all that, but there are differences. You do get the higher performance engine, versus with the cabin chassis you get the derated engine, you get less power. It's more the work version of this. For the work version of this truck, they're not pushing the horsepower and the torque. They're derating that thing a little bit. It's got a different turbo. It's got some other different components. The cabin chassis version of this engine just isn't the fun engine. It's the business end of engines. So this is just the route I decided to go right now. I've been happy with it. It definitely has its pros and cons. Honestly, guys, the biggest con of this setup is just how flashy it is at times when I'm not working. Like with the plow on it and stuff, it's cool, but just showing up places with such a nice truck, like when my long guys are out, I couldn't just show up to the job. They're like, oh, there's the boss. Like before with a 150, you could park it and they can pull up to the next job and you're already there. You're kind of watching things. You can't pull up with this truck and park and kind of see what your guys are doing. They're looking right at you. Like, you don't blend in. And that's really the biggest con with the truck. Other than that, guys, super excited. But we are 1.3 miles in, and we are getting 9.4 miles to the gallon with all this gear on the truck. But anyway, I'm going to drive for a little bit, and I will touch base with you once we get a couple more miles on the clock. See what the next scene. Alright, so we are about 3 miles in, and we're getting 12.4 miles to the gallon, even with all this gear. So pretty impressive. So one of the things is the diesel engine. Buying this truck with a diesel, it's very controversial, and it's for, let's just be honest, for business purposes is not smart. It's better to have the gas engine. It's more reliable, it's cheaper from a business investment standpoint. Gas engine 7.3 or 6.2 Ford for the win. Now, that being said, why do people buy Ferraris? Why do people buy Mustangs? Why do people buy the new Corvette? It's not because they're super reliable. It's not because they're super practical. It's because they want to have fun. And that's what I'm doing with my truck. At the end of the day, this is my project. It's my fun truck. It's if I were just doing business and I had maybe a Corvette or something, well, here's the thing. I'm not going to put money into Corvettes. If I'm going to have something fun, it's going to be my truck. You know, and that's why we have the 1,050 foot-pound 6.7 Power Stroke V8 450. Yeah, it's going to get scratched. Yeah, it's going to get dented. I was in the bed of the truck the other day, and I noticed someone dented my cab a little bit, like a small little, you will never notice it. It's super small. It must have been putting a shovel in the bed. Right there by the cab light. What am I going to do? It's not a big deal. It's not killing the resale value of the truck or anything like that. But, yeah, things happen. It's a nice truck. And a lot of people they look at it and they say, oh, that truck is so beautiful, and it's used for salting, and it's going to rot out, or it's used for plowing. It's too beautiful. It's, at the end of the day, guys, it's still just a truck. And yeah, it's plowing and it's salting and all that stuff. And from my experience, guys, plowing and salting and all that with these trucks, if you're cautious, if you're cleaning your truck, if you're watching it, your truck's gonna be okay. It's if you don't take care of it at all. You don't have the flap hanging off the back of it like we do. If you follow the channel, you know we hang the bed mat right out of the back of the truck, and it is literally just keeping all that from getting up under there. It's an effort, guys. It's an effort, and that little bit pays off. The truck's gonna have its resale value regardless. Being a 450, being a diesel, being that the way we use the truck, it keeps relatively low miles, it's gonna retain its value. So at the end of the day, for us to run this new truck and be super reliable, get into our accounts because we have such a new truck, I don't know, I'd rather be getting our work done than fixing on an old truck, because I only run old, ugly, rusty trucks for plowing. You know, we hear stuff like that all the time. And this is why, guys, I'm more concerned about getting the work done than I am fixing on a truck. But we are 5.8 miles in, and we are at 13.9 miles per gallon. Now, I will say this. This is a little bit of a cheat in a way, because there's not a lot of red lights, and we're not traveling at a high rate of speed. And I typically have done these tests using this route. Now, I've done like 2.7 EcoBoost towing a dump trailer on this route, and that truck is so efficient. It might get like 16, 17 miles to the gallon doing it, but take that with a grain of salt. It's hard to say. I mean, there's not a lot of stop signs. Is this really city driving? I don't know. It's kind of very advantageous for the truck. Now, we're getting currently 14 to the gallon at 6 miles in, and we're at 19 degrees. Pretty impressive for this truck, but I'm gonna drive a little further and we'll touch base once we get a few more miles on the clock. See you guys at the next scene. All right, guys, so we are 8.5 miles in. We actually hit a red light, and we just watched our MPG drop a whole MPG just by sitting at one red light. We just reached 15 to the gallon, and now we're at 14 because we had to stop and sit. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can call this city. This is kind of maybe rural. I don't know, but it's not highway, that's for sure. So yeah, just on these back roads. I love these back roads. It's like these curvy, windy back roads out here. We're in Harrison Township right now. Cool little town out here. This is like a more laid back kind of area. There's not a whole lot of sidewalks and stuff. It's just back roads and curves and twists. There's some developed areas too as well. There's a ton of apartments and all that good stuff. But yeah, pretty cool, guys. So we're just going down these windy back roads on this test. I am going to go ahead and touch base with you guys once we get back to our starting point. See you guys there. And just like that, we are back where we started, and we got 14.8 miles to the gallon. Now, honestly, we were at 15, but a couple stop signs and things like that, down to 14.9, and then just clicked down to 14.8 as we came to a stop here. Now, let's go ahead and take a look here. Truck did really good. It was just a pleasure driving it. I could drive this thing like that all day. With the plow on the truck, it drives like a Cadillac. The extra weight only helps the characteristics of how it drives. The 1,000 pounds of salt plus a 350 pound spreader plus a 1,100 pound plow, and still return 15 to the gallon for a truck this size. That's kind of why I got this truck, guys. Very impressed. Drove great. But comment below and tell me what you think. What kind of MPG test would you guys like to see next? But I gotta get home and check on an old lady, play with the kitties. So that's it for today's video. But anyway, this is DS Trucks. My name is Sean. Have a good day.